Before I get too heavily into this, you all know what today is. A lot of us remember today like it's the back of our hand, like it just happened yesterday. But before I get too deep into it, I want to go ahead and say I don't mean any disrespect towards any family or friends that were involved in it. And yes, I'm talking about 9/11. One of the most, still getting goosebumps, one of the most chilling, longest days of just about everybody's lives. As we all know, a couple of planes hit certain spots. Towers came down, a couple of, I believe it was Building 7 came down. Pentagon got hit. Thousands of people died. And I'm noticing like on Facebook and things that people are like, where were you when it happened? Do you remember where you? Everybody remembers. I guarantee you, you remember exactly where you were when it happened. But what nobody realizes is that everybody was in the exact same spot. I know you're thinking, what do you mean by that? We were all in the exact same spot on 9/11. We were in shock and awe and anger and confusion and lost. We all were there because we didn't know what was happening, who done it, why did this happen. And that's the number one thing that has come up this morning about 9/11 is why did this happen? Why did this happen? Was it 9/11 2001? So that's 12 years ago today that people lost their lives for what many people believe to be for no reason whatsoever. I'll tell you why it happened. Supremacy. It's just like all the other bad guys, dare I say, seem to think that they can attack our country and gain supremacy over us, to be able to rule us, to take over, to make this country theirs. That's why it happened. Sadly enough, it didn't work in a sense, but it did in others. We completely changed the way we lived from that moment that very first plane hit that building until now. Everything's completely changed in the way we live and the way we trust each other when it comes to certain things. Because if you remember back to this day in 2001, the Red Cross had so many volunteers come out of nowhere, come out of the woodworks. Had so many people that were just visiting New York that dropped everything and went to help, to volunteer, to hand out water, whatever it took. Some of these people were as far away as Los Angeles that were just visiting, just chilling out. I mean, I'm sitting here watching on the History Channel. It's called 9/11, the days after. And, you know, it's showing more of the intense views of what happened this day 12 years ago. And I can't help but think that, what do you think now? How do you feel now? Do you not realize that the only time that we as a country feel pain is on the anniversary? The only other people that feel burdened are the ones that were friends and family of the people that were inside that building. This is Newtown all over again. No disrespect, like I said earlier, it's just the fact and that none of us really think about it until today. Now you want to remember those family and friends that were there. That's the only ones that are going to be really truly affected by today, are the ones that were in the thick of it. The rest of us are going to remember and mourn them, don't get me wrong, but we're not going to feel that same emptiness, that same flashback in the back of our heads of every single second of that day and the days after. And nobody's going to be able to understand that. Nobody's going to stop for those 2 seconds and be like, that was my best friend's mom. That was my dad. That was my sister. That was my brother. That was my wife. That was my husband. So basically, I want to kind of cover all bases. I don't want to take one side or the other. Not saying that we're right, they were wrong, the Taliban were out of line, we were out of line, whatever the case may be. This ain't about the attacks. That's what a lot of people's got construed in their minds, that we got to remember what they did to us. That way it fuels us to continue to be over there at war. We need to remember the families, what they're going to be. I mean, the thing is a lot of people are only remembering today, but those that were close to ground zero, that were in it, their family, this is every day. Today's just an anniversary of making it feel worse, because they're getting comfort in a way because they're not mourning alone for today. But tomorrow, guess what? They're going to be going right back to mourning alone, because the rest of the world is going to keep on ticking just like it did yesterday. And a lot of you that were asking on Facebook, do you remember where you were? Absolutely I do. Everybody does, like I said, but I remember I was in auto body class. And what's funny about this whole shindig I'm throwing at you here is, even still to this day, 12 years later, September 11th gives me the most horrible feeling in my stomach of all time. It started a war that's never going to end. It started something that I'm afraid that's going to last until my kids' lifetimes, in their mid-aged years, being teenager and on up. It's just never going to stop. It's going to be something that either we step on somebody's toes that it's going to end up fighting back really hard and we lose several more and whatever. But what keeps running through my head the most out of everything that happened today is those phone calls. I remember going in, we was in auto body and I was putting a dash back together. And when we actually went into the classroom to watch the television to see what was going on, as soon as I stepped into the door, I watched the second plane hit. Of course, every one of us were glued to the television from that point on. And the people jumping and feeling they had no choice and everything like that. And the whole time I remember this very well, I kept thinking, what would possess them, considering they know that we're going to retaliate. They know that we're not going to stop until we get justice. That's just who we are. What did they think they were going to accomplish with this task? Do they think they won? Of course they do. What do you mean? Have we won? Is not from that day forward the deaths stopped? Have we won? Has not their act of terrorism blew up into a war that is never ending? It just keeps going on and on and on. So I dare to ask you, will we win? Or is this something that's going to be remembered forever? The war that never ended because of some, dare I say, Taliban, that's a ridiculous name to give them. They're not a fucking gang. I just, oh man. I sit here and I think 12 years ago that this group of people got a hair up their ass and decided to attack us. And now we're at the point that we're going to basically try to take over another country besides the one that attacked us. I believe that they won. Whether other people want to or not, I do, because they've stripped us down to bare essentials. We no longer function the same. We no longer believe in ourselves because of this act. And what's sad is, like I said earlier, it's only because it's today. Tomorrow, people will forget all about it again. It'll be go back to work, nothing's changed. Granted, there'll be some out there that'll always remember every day of their lives. But sitting here watching this on the television, seeing these people's faces and expressions and them firefighters and policemen and everything else just trying to sift through the rubble as best as they could to, try to find anybody underneath it. For me, it just kind of hit home today. I don't know. I had to talk about it. I had to get my thoughts off my chest to relieve the brain of why, because that's what everybody's wanting to know. Why? Even though it was 12 years ago, why the hell did this happen? So I figured I'd try to give an answer. And as I said earlier, supremacy, rulership, ownership. That's why it happened.